That's it?
Yep.
Alrighty, so good to get started then?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sophie. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Kristen Watson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Bowen Island Municipality. Welcome to our second budget open house meeting. I thank you for being here. I just want to set the stage for you. It's a very free-formed meeting. It's not structured in any way like a typical council meeting is. So I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to elaborate further on certain points. So please do put up your hand or just interrupt me if there's something that you'd like me to expand further on or you have a question about something. I really want this to be interactive, and if you have questions, then I'd like to do my best to address them. So welcome, and please participate in any way you can, raising your hand or just asking me to pause for a bit. That's all okay in this kind of open house format. I will be going over what I'm calling is the first draft of the financial plan. There will be a couple of updates coming quite soon to council for the March 10th agenda. So I will be making reference to the things that have changed from the first draft as we go through this. But essentially all of the material that I'm talking about tonight is available on our website. And I'm just going to share my screen with you right now and get started. Okay. Oops, hold on a second. I know that didn't work. There we go. So hopefully you have my screen now, do you?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Okay. All right. So here we go. I'm going to talk tonight about a few things. I'll go over some of the planning assumptions that are embedded within this budget. I'll talk about what we are looking at for an annual change in the property tax revenue. I'll talk very quickly about the non-market change and its impact to our assessment roll this year, the BC assessment data. Go over all of our different revenue sources in a little bit of detail, same with our operating expenses, and then I'll identify all of our planned capital expenditures for the year. I'm going to move in to the things that are really driving costs for 2025, talk about what the impact is on our debt servicing, and just then we'll go to what is left before we get to the finish line in this whole financial plan development process. So starting with some of those underlying assumptions. We're looking at an embedded cost of living allowance for our staffing costs for 2025. We do have part union staff. All of our outside workers are union staff, and our exempt inside workers, we're looking at 3.5 according to the collective agreement signed with the union workers for 2025. And exempt, we go by policy. We go by the average change in the CPI for the Greater Vancouver Regional District. And that was at 2.6 from November to November 2024. In the 5-year financial plan, I've used a 3% inflationary estimate for 2026 through 2029. I also assume an investment rate of return between 3 and 4% throughout the planning period. And I'm assuming a 4% cost of borrowing on our variable rate loans. One of note we do have is the fire truck loan that was borrowed several years ago, and that is sitting at about $325,000 as of December 31st. It started at $640,000 2.5 years ago. There is a population growth assumption in our financial plan from 2016 through 2021. We had unprecedented growth at about 3.1% per year. Most of that, I think, people tend to attribute to the growth during the COVID period. It really was unprecedented for our community. It was overall like 15% over the 5-year period. So we are making the assumption that that was an unusual growth bump, accelerated period of growth for our community. And providing that our population growth rate does not exceed that, that will bring us in at under the population 5,000 for 2026. So we are very carefully watching that. It does have implications for our community from a policing cost perspective. So once our community goes over $5,000, is there a chat? Oh, no, sorry. Once our community goes over $5,000, 5,000 population, then that puts us responsible for about 70% of our policing costs, and we're currently paying 25%. So it's a big jump. And as communities approach that 5,000 population threshold, they really need to be making some planning decisions and making those planning decisions early before they get there. So what we started last year and what we're continuing to do, starting in 2024, we set aside $50,000 last year. This year we plan to set aside $75,000 for it and increase that amount by 25,000 in each successive year until we get there. That will do two things. It'll create a reserve fund to help us maybe smooth the impact of that 1 year big jump. And the other thing is it will gradually increase the tax rate to annually get the annual tax collections to a level that is going to be able to accommodate that that bump from the police tax. We don't know what it's going to be. Other communities don't know what they're going to be paying either. But when you consider that now, given our current model is 25% and our bill annually from the province is just over $500,000, that would extrapolate into almost a $2 million hit. But I think that is absolutely extraordinarily high, and all of the other 5,000 population communities are budgeting somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1 million for what the cost is going to look like for them. Where do our taxes go? For every dollar that we pay, BIM keeps about 2/3 of it, and about 1/3 of it goes to those other taxing authorities. So who are they? Those are, of course, the province for the school and police tax. They are the Islands Trust, BC Assessment, and Metro Vancouver all get a share of the tax dollars that are paid and collected by BIM on behalf of those agencies. So year over year, we are looking at an increase to the property tax revenue requirement up to 9 million, just over 9 million. We're budgeting that as a 9.5% increase over 2024, over 2025. And we believe we need one more significant annual increase before we can get back down to a level that is sustainable and acceptable, I think, from most people's kind of perspective, somewhere south of 5, we're hoping. That translates into additional annual revenue of $787,000. That's the increase of 9.5% over the property tax collected last year. So we do have a bit of new construction this year, which is helpful to our role. Non-market change is the value of any new construction or any reclassification of properties from, for example, from a farm becoming a residential property. The assessment base of those properties changes, and they, from our perspective, they produce more taxable revenue because they're no longer exempt. There's also new roles that are created every year through the subdivision process. And of course, one big factor in non-market change are any significant changes to the properties that are granted a permissive property tax exemption from council. So this year we're looking at an increase to the roll from non-market change of about $44 million. And for us, that will translate into just over $100,000 in new revenue. So effectively what that means then is it translates to a reduction in the effective rate of our property tax increase. So while we're collecting 9.5% actual more dollars to the average property owner, it feels like about 8% because we have new properties that we didn't have last year. So everybody gets a little smaller piece of the pie. The value of an average residential property on Bowen Island is still over $1.5 million. And for an average property owner then, looking at a 9.5% increase, that translates to a municipal property tax bill of about $3 $3,831. And last year we were looking at 3,547. So that's about a $284 increase from 2024. Our operating budget revenues, you can find them in the financial plan. The financial plan is available on the website. In our first line there is sales of service. We've got our recreation fees. In there, we record our business license revenue. We have lease revenue from the fire hall. Our community center rentals were in this first year, we're estimating perhaps $60,000. We don't want to be too ambitious. We want to set a realistic target. So we're starting at 60,000 and we expect to be increasing from there. Mortgage and dock revenues are about $45,000. And then we have other miscellaneous permits, things like that in there. There's several grants that we have. I've listed them all out here. That's going to change. The community center grant, we've actually recorded that and recorded that as received in 2024. So that's a little year-end adjustment that I'll be making to the audited financial statements this year. So there's grants in there that we're expecting, capital grants for the multi-use path, a significant amount of housing money. We did benefit from the Housing Accelerator Fund this year, and we've got money targeted at development approvals. That's funding our OCP review. And also we're going to be using $50,000. You'll be happy to hear this, Bill. $50,000 of that Housing Accelerator Fund to develop a DCC bylaw for the sewer and one for Cove Bay Water as well. We believe our building permit revenue is going to be about $366,000 this year. It was $366 last year, and we want to keep our target not too ambitious. It is the slow time for building permit at this time of year. We do expect to see an uptick in the spring as markets pick up and things like that. But we are wanting to make sure that we don't be too ambitious in our estimate for building permit revenue. Other income, we've got an estimate of about $400,000 for investment income this year. We've got late payment penalties and interest on late payments of taxes, as well as other miscellaneous income in there. So new debt this year, potentially. So for 2025, we are earmarking potential new debt of $250,000 in regards to work on a new operations work yard. The initial plan is for a capital project of a total of about $3.5 million over 3 years. And this, of course, it's new debt, and we cannot go into new debt without going through an elector approval process. So if council goes ahead with this budget, with this project in there, you can expect to have either a petition process or a referendum for the new debt next year. I did hear some people talking about a zero-based budget, and I did want to just address that for a minute. We always start with a zero-based budget, and what that means really is that the manager starts each year and takes a really good look at their department. They look at their service plan and they pencil in the budgets accordingly for what they believe that they need for the supplies and services needed to carry out their work plan each year. So because staffing is typically about 2/3 of all of our operating expenses, they're very easy to measure. That's where we start from, our staffing costs. And really, when we're developing our operating budgets, we're really only looking at the last third, and that's where we have some discretion around what we can procure or how much we can spend on those service line items. So taking a look into our operating budget line items a little bit carefully, we've got first starting with mayor and council. The initial draft one did include a proposed increase to mayor and council salary. So that has changed. And when you see the new draft proposal number 2, you will see that while they were supportive of increasing the council remuneration, they did direct that that not take effect until the new council comes in. So that is being taken out of 2025, and 2026, and I've added it back into 2027. Administration and finance, it includes, of course, staffing costs, the COLA and salary grid progression for staff. As well, we are experiencing increased audit fees this year. We did go out last year to a request for proposals. We went again with the same auditor. They were the only respondents to our request for proposal, so there wasn't a whole lot of choice there. And we have been facing increased audit fees in the increased, risk environment around IT controls and, fraudulent payment scheme. There's just the landscape looks a whole lot different now, and audit fees go up each year accordingly because of that. Got some additional costs from Moneris. We believe that we're going to be doing a lot more credit card transactions, that kind of thing. When we get to the community center, we're looking at implementing an online e-commerce feature for our website. So we do need to make a provision there for additional banking fees. General government costs, we're going to be looking at a pretty significant hit to our IT management course. We contract with a IT provider to oversee and administer all of our IT networks and systems. And now that we'll be operating out of the new building, there's a lot more touch points. There's a lot more wireless access points. There's additional peripheral devices. And, I'm going to say that we were quite surprised by that additional cost. But one of the benefits of having the new community center space open, that everybody will be able to connect to Wi-Fi. So, yeah. Some of our general government costs, of course, are eliminated with the municipal hall rent that we're paying here. We're currently paying $9,500 a month. So we do expect that March will be our final month here in Municipal Hall, and we will be eliminating those costs going forward. Our community grants budget, we've maintained the budget for community assistance. I have some room in there because we don't pay for the community school coordinator position, nor the Caring Circle Health Navigator position anymore. So that's created some room in that budget. And that's, I know that some of you are aware of the proposal coming forward from the Joint Operating Committee regarding the production coordinator position. So that's where we've made room within the community grants budget to potentially engage the Hearth on a contract position to really ensure that new theater space is occupied, that it's booked, that prospective renters are kind of guided through the process and are aware of the opportunity that they're going to have here at our new theater space. So we believe that that is sort of an investment in making sure that that new facility is successful. And I think the last thing anybody wants is that building and that theater space to sit empty while we're not able to fill it. So we really do believe that an investment in promoting that space and getting some productions to the island is going to be an invaluable investment. So this is a 2-year proposed position. The other side of having it managed through the Hearth, being a not-for-profit society and an arts organization, is they're going to have access to several other funding opportunities, grant proposals through the arts and culture programs that as a municipality we just wouldn't have. So by funneling that money through to the Hearth, we're able to stretch the dollars a little bit more and also to access potential funding opportunities, again, to help make that position self-sustaining. Our fire and emergency budget includes some new staffing requests. There is a 0.6% request from the fire chief to assist with the additional responsibilities that have been been placed upon municipalities due to new provincial fire services legislation that was passed last year. And as well, on the emergency planning side, there's a new Emergency and Disaster Management Act that really has additional responsibilities from an emergency management perspective placed upon municipalities. We currently have a 0.6 emergency planning coordinator position, and staff are asking that that be increased to a 1.0 full-time. I have taken out $150,000 of grant-funded expenditures that were in there last year. We still going forward with the grant, but instead it's been moved to a capital grant. And what it is it's really in the Public Works Department. It's a grant that was awarded in order for us to go through and look at culverts and really figure out what size they should be in order to manage that kind of 100-year flood scenario. So that work will be managed by Patrick and his team this year. Our community planning budget doesn't look extraordinarily different from last year. There's just some staffing and grid progression and COLA costs in there. Bylaw services looks quite different. There is a proposal being brought forward to council. This will be at the March 10th meeting. We believe that we tried last year to hire auxiliary flaggers, auxiliary ferry marshalers, so on an on-call basis. The job without dedicated hours, with no commitment of shifts, attracted exactly 0 applicants. So this year, our proposal is a little bit different. We thought, okay, what if we offer fixed hours every week? What if we staff this position from May through October so that we have this dedicated weekend ferry marshaling support? Our community is desperately screaming out for it. We got at the end of last year, fiscal last year in December, the provincial government gave us an additional $45,000 of community grant funds that we had absolutely no idea we were getting. They were just a little gift at the end of the year last year. So we thought, what if we take that money and we just throw it out there as this pilot project, see how it goes. Perhaps then maybe using that, we can really talk with BC Ferries and see if that can't leverage some additional support. We'll see where that goes, but I think everybody universally admits that ferry marshaling in the summer is definitely an issue that just can't be left to flounder anymore. So that's in there this year. That's but again, not funded from taxes, funded from this use of surplus, which came to us last year as an unexpected gift at the end of the year. So Public Works budget looks quite similar year over year, because in 2024 we had some unusual things in there. We had $100,000 of arborist fees. We had a very significant storm in March of 2024 last year. So we increased our arborist budget to deal with all of the fallout, to deal with all of the trees that had come down and clear them out. We've taken that extra allotment away for 2025. As well, there's some staffing changes. We did have a half-time position in there for asset management support. We've taken that out this year, and we're reproposing that we put in a full-time 1.0 dedicated asset management coordinator. We're really struggling with finding the resources to move this project forward, and without dedicated full-time person on this file, we just can't see how we can manage to get the work done. So Patrick and his team are asking for a 1.0 dedicated asset management coordinator position this year. Also, in something interesting, again, has to do with Snug Cove, has to do with line painting. We found an interesting new application. It's some kind of thermal imaging, some kind of rubberized plastic coating, imaging that kind of gets baked right on to the asphalt, onto the pavement. So, you know, the line painting that we do, and it needs to be done every year over and over again, because the paint that they use these days just doesn't have the same sticking power that the paint of the old days used to have. So alternative technology has been developed, this interesting thermal imaging technology. We do get money from TransLink every year to maintain Trunk Road. It's part of something called the Municipal Road Network. So any of those intra-regional roads that service different municipalities within GVRD, and as long as they're assigned this municipal road network status, there's maintenance money that is provided by TransLink in order to look after them. So we're lucky that we have a little bit of trunk road kind of from the ferry terminal, just basically to the hill, is part of the regional municipal road network. And we get about, I want to say about $60,000 a year that we can use dedicated to operating and maintaining that road. So this year we're planning on putting 2 years of that money together and embark on this kind of neat, kind of new, innovative thermal imaging technology to really demarc those ferry marshaling spaces, those no-go hatch zones areas, and also there's some work up by the school as far as marking school zones and stuff that I think are going to probably be included in this project too. So that's exciting, and we'll look forward to that. Solid waste management. We are almost at the end of our very long-term contract that we had with Bowen Waste. We have a contract in place. It was a 10-year contract, and we have this year and next year, and then that contract is over. So we've been very lucky that we've had this fixed price term for a long period of time. We do have some where we have to increase it each year is the cost of the tipping fees. So the actual contract for the work is fixed from year to year, but those tipping fees charged by Metro Vancouver, we have to provide additional budget in order to accommodate those tipping fees each year. Community rec. So with moving to the new community center, we do expect savings there from the rental of the fitness studio and carrying out the programs there, because they will be moving to the community center. Something really exciting this year is there is a potential for a new youth center. So the youth center that's currently located at the Children's Center, it's always been a shared space with the toddlers, and it's just not ideal for the teens to be using that space, because it's not kind of their own. It's always been a shared space for them. And while we're so grateful to Anne and the Children's Center staff for making a home for us there, we do hope we've put together a grant proposal through the RCMP forfeiture grant program. They're looking at ways to increase youth engagement and reduce crime in neighborhoods through this grant program. So we have put through a grant proposal to them for $40,000, which we hope to be able to use that in order to take over one of the spaces in the new community health center and open up a dedicated youth center in that space there. We think the location would be fantastic, and also co-located with all of those health services it's a perfect opportunity to increase youth engagement and really create a space that they can make their own down there. So we hope to hear from that grant. We think this is a really important initiative, and the grant is for $40,000. We believe at a minimum we'd need $25,000 to make the space ready. So we have included $25,000 from the municipal budget in case that grant doesn't come through, but we want to make sure that there's provision there so that we can go forward with that initiative regardless. So we'll cross our fingers and we'll hope that the RCMP grant comes through, but if not, we are setting aside a minimum of $25,000 in order to get started and get that new space going at the community health center. Our community parks, with all of the additional parks acquisitions over the years, we've never increased the staffing complement there with many more kilometers of trails and new green open spaces. So we do employ a couple of students in the summer. We are proposing, though, instead of having those part-time positions, we are proposing that we convert those into 2 full-time year-round positions. So a net increase then on the FTE side would be 1.4 additional FTE. And that will enable us to make sure that we can adequately look after all of the parks, trails, and greenways assets that we have and that we struggle to maintain now, because we're really sharing staff between public works and parks. And it's too much for for that small staff to be looking after all the roads and all the parks as well. We have a strategic initiatives line item budget. There's quite a few things in there. These are where it's kind of our catch-all category. We put in all of our projects that council has identified within their strategic plan that they'd like to see us get to from year to year. So there's a list there of all of the things that we will be, these are our special projects that we will be focusing on this year and that council has really identified in their strategic plan that they would like us to focus our time on. Community center facility. This is a new budget line item now that we will be opening up that community center to the public. So we've put in there everything that we can think of that you're going to need to operate a brand new building. So we've got line items for all of our different systems, our HVAC systems, our cleaning, our hydro, our water, all of those things, plus all of the staffing. Our staffing complement includes one full-time facility manager. And as well, we've got, we believe, sufficient staffing resources dedicated to make sure that we have a custodian on site for when the building opens first thing in the morning. And we need to make sure that there's a custodian on site at the end of the day to lock that building up and make sure that it's secure and safe and that everybody has vacated the building. We do believe that there'll be a gap during the course of the day, when we won't have custodial staff on site, but we're going to try with that model and see how that goes. And then we would have the custodian on site on the weekends when that building is open to the public as well. I'll go quickly through what our capital expenditure list is. We've got a proposed project to create some filing room. We've got a lot of boxes upstairs here at Municipal Hall and they need a new space in the community center. I think, Sophie, I think this one's coming out though. Yeah, we've got the space and we don't need to improve it in any way. We can just use it as is. So that will be coming out in draft 2. We've got some computer equipment and an annual ongoing IT replacement schedule that we spend each year. So we've got 30,000 set aside for that. And as well, we're looking to upgrade the audio visual capability in the community conference room in the new council chambers. So we potentially can access grant funding of about $25,000. So working with our accessibility committee, we're going to potentially put that forward as a grant project that we could potentially partly fund with grant funds. Staff have put forward a request for a new vehicle this year. This would be used by the planning and engineering staff to go out and conduct inspections on properties or building inspection as well. Currently, our staff use their personal vehicles to do this, so we are reimbursing them. So plan has been put forward, a request has been put forward to acquire a new truck using our, it would be using our equipment reserve. It would actually be funded using our current year contribution to equipment reserve. So that effectively is funded through property taxes. Community center equipment and furniture. So we are absolutely packing up our desks and taking all this stuff from Municipal Hall, but we do have this big, beautiful building that is going to require a couple of things. We don't have a washer and dryer in there. We're going to have to build some kind of storage shed for garbage containment. All of the things that you're going to need for a new building. Certainly, I do want to assure you that, we're not out there buying office furniture or anything. We're taking absolutely everything from here. But for the public spaces, for the community living room, there's some lovely new furniture that's been ordered and is waiting us to get down there. As well, there's some new rooms, new spaces that we didn't have before. So, we've got a small multi-purpose meeting room. We need to get some tables and chairs for there. And yeah, we're waiting to see what's needed. We're certainly not going out and buying things ahead of time, but we do believe that there needs to be a provision there for furnishings that we just don't think that we have at this point. This is actually out. Next version of the budget, we'll see this gone. There was a request for these misting stations and the Emergency Planning Committee has not supported this request. It's going to council on the 10th. So I haven't put that into the draft 2 of the budget. The fire hall, both of them, we'd like to see, heat pumps, installed in those fire halls. It'll reduce the heating costs, what we're spending on heat, through propane, heaters now. It's a cleaner, greener, more efficient, way to heat, building spaces. So we believe that that is, a good investment of money up front, which will yield savings all the way down the road. Fire department has asked for a utility vehicle. They want to use it on wildfire, trails, hard to reach areas. It's also, again, multi-purpose. It could be used to, attach a plow to it so that they can get their driveway, around the fire hall that can get plowed. They can do that themselves in the wintertime. The fire hall itself has a large meeting room. We use it to do our EOC training. It's used for other community groups as well. It is very bad acoustics in there. It's very echoey. It's got that metal roof on top. When the rain comes, you can't even speak. It's so loud. So they've proposed to install a drop ceiling there to improve the acoustics in that room, and they've got a budget line item tagged to that of $20,000. We've got a new fire truck coming next year. We've already made a new down payment on it. So next year we'll need to be paying for the balance of that when it is delivered. It's going to be $312,000. There's an annual investment in firefighter turnout gear that we make of about $20,000 per year. Same with the firefighter equipment, all of the hoses and nozzles and bits and pieces get some replenished every year. We set aside about $25,000 per year for fire department equipment. And this is interesting. This is approved. This is a grant that we have received. $40,000 was received, and we will be able to put gear racks in the satellite fire hall. We're going to acquire a pressure washer. We're going to acquire a personal protective equipment dryer and able to make sure that that gear is properly dried when it comes in and it's wet and it's been washed. And there are a couple of brand new sets of turnout gear that need to be acquired because the fire department would like to expand their membership by 4 members. They're trying to attract 4 members next year in order to really reduce the pressure on the existing complement of volunteers. Grafton Lake, we believe that a watershed management plan is required for this park, for this water resource. Of course, we do see that it's got some applicability to the water system as well as the larger park nature value benefit of the park itself to the whole island. So we are proposing to split that cost between 25% to Cove Bay Water and 75% to the larger community parks aspect of it. We expect it will cost somewhere around $100,000. We do believe that there are grant funding opportunities out there for that. So Carla is really on the hunt for applicable relevant grant opportunities that can help with this project. But it is something that is such a significant large new park asset that we really need to make sure that we understand over the long term how we need to protect it, how we need to look after it. We have ordered a pit toilet. We just need to do the install of it. So that should be going forth, and it will be going at the Grafton Lake Park. That installation is going to be coordinated very soon. Carla will be managing and overseeing replacement and renewal of several parks, trails, and beach assets this year. The stairs up behind Municipal Hall up to Kate's Hill are on the docket to be upgraded and repaired this year. There's lots of other staircases that we have all over the island. Some of the most worst condition ones that are high on the list of priorities that need remediation are these ones here listed: Seymour Bay, Seawalk Trail, CRC, Clipper Beach, Village Drive, and Kate's Bay Beach Stairs. We have set aside $1 million in this budget to undertake culvert replacements. So this year, the culvert replacements are being coordinated with the large water projects, the one in Blue Water and the one in Eagle Cliff. So those projects are water main projects, but if we're digging up the road at the time, we don't want to come back and dig it up, 2 years later and replace the culvert there. So we are undertaking those road asset improvements at the same time that we're doing the water. So we need about $1 million of our municipal money in order to fund those culvert replacements as part of those water projects. We're gonna do about $550,000 worth of asphalt paving this year. We are increasing that budget by $50,000 every year. We believe that in order to maintain our roads at the level that we would like to see them, that we need probably an investment of about $1 million a year in road rehabilitation. We need to do significant amount of work of rock slope work. So we have very high risk locations around Eagle Cliff, along Taylor and Woods Road. So we have set aside a provision of $100,000 each year in order to start chipping away at those and start dealing with those rockfall areas. We have some work that needs to be done at the library. There's some beams that are rotten and they require replacement. And as well, we do have a mystery failed culvert that's actually right underneath that building. So it is in use, this culvert. It's part of the building system. What we're going to do is we're going to actually slide a new culvert right into that one and then fill it and give it some structure and some strength, because we are worried that, if we don't deal with it, we're potentially compromising the structure of the building. And we'll be looking at getting that project done very soon. We have some rotten piles on Snug Cove Wharf that need to be replaced this year, as well as some repairs to Mount Gardner Dock. And I think we're looking at replacing the new ramp down to the flow. Public Works is looking to acquire brining equipment. This is equipment that goes in the back of the truck and sprays salt water on the roads, more efficient than dumping pure salt on them. And it's certainly more efficient to deal with those black ice situations. It's a means to prevent black ice from forming. So if you spray it on before the freeze hits, then that it makes the road safer. I already talked about the thermoplastic pavement. Our multi-use path project, we do have the one that's going on right now from the bottom of our Artisan Square up to Charlie's Lane. So that's in the budget for just over 1.2 million. We're looking at getting funding from an active transportation grant of 350,000. We've got TransLink walking infrastructure grant of 582,000. We've got our own climate action funds that we're contributing, and as well an $18,000 contribution is coming from property taxes in order to pay for that little stretch of the multi-use path. The next phase then is Charlie's Lane towards Grafton Lake. We did take that to council last week. We indicated that we needed council to support a municipal contribution of $236,000 in order to move forward with that phase of the multi-use path. They did just say, well, refer it to the budget, put it in the budget. So I will be putting it in the next draft of the budget. I'm taking $158,000 of a fund of leftover incomplete works that we have over the years, as well as some community works funds there. So that will make up our municipal contribution. That community works funds is also known, people call it gas tax money. So that's what we get over 2 years. We get 158,000 every 2 years. So that allocation of funding plus this leftover incomplete works funding of ours would make up our municipal contribution. Future phases, Patrick has indicated that if we want to be ready to apply for, like shelf ready to apply for a grant, we're going to have to spend a little bit of money on design of future phases. Council did agree that we should probably defer that expenditure until we have we've identified any relevant grant opportunities out there in order to pay for that. The new service yard, 3.5 million. I've put in some spending initially this year, significant amount of spending next year, and then kind of wrap up, finalize the project 2027. I think most people are quite familiar with the condition of the works yard and what a poor condition it's in, and looking for a solution to remediate that site. Again, $3.5 million project like that, we don't have any spare funding that we can put towards that project. So it would require additional borrowing. So again, like we'd be going to an assent process in order to get approval for that. The recreation has been awarded a $50,000 grant. So that is, they are out there right now looking at acquiring new fitness equipment for our fitness weight room at the new space. 25,000 has been set aside. I talked about doing this youth center project. There's 40, this is one that I've heard people talk about in the community. There's $40,000 proposed that we use from the public art reserve. We have a public art reserve that is funded by an annual contribution from property taxes of $10,000. We haven't really spent much of that since we started collecting. So that fund has grown to $50,000. So the Public Art Committee has recommended that 40,000 of it be used this year in order to pay for a significant art installation at the community center and potentially some other small public art initiatives across the island. And then looking forward in 2027, we're saving up to look at refurbishing the tennis courts at Bix and looking at perhaps creating a multi-sport court. This court's going to take a lot of collaboration with Bix, with the West Van School District, but initial discussions with them seem that they are very supportive of that. And again, school districts also potentially have grant funds that through their PACs and things like that that can be accessed. So we'll be looking at taking a collaborative approach to find money to upgrade that community asset. So the cost drivers for this budget, staffing is a big one. We do have 4.9 new FTE positions. Most of them are included within the general fund and funded from property taxes. One of the positions is a utilities operator position, so that would be a new position, and that will be discussed more in detail on March 3rd at the Committee of the Whole, where we're looking at all of the water budgets there together. So if you're interested in water and sewer on Bowen Island, please make sure that you attend that meeting or you tune in. It'll be recorded, and make sure to catch that on YouTube. That is March 3rd at 1 o'clock. So our general fund asset serving all island is our asset management coordinator in Public Works, the additional FTE request from the Fire and Emergency Planning Department. There is a request from Recreation to engage a 0.5 FTE, and that will be a municipal position. So kind of in tandem with the production coordinator contract position that is going to be managed by the Hearth. We see the need to support that with a 0.5, a half full-time staffing allocation for the booking coordinator position. So that person would be responsible to oversee the contracts and managing deposits and managing the rentals, managing the insurance requirements, making sure that all of those contract details are met and ticked, and all of the additional staffing resources. So if a rental is taking place outside of core operating hours, it's going to go till 10, 10:30 at night. That's outside of our core operating hours. So we need to make sure that there's additional rental fees charged to recoup our custodial fees that would be paid for that, or if there was a technician person needed to operate the theater, that kind of thing. So that booking coordinator is going to look after all of the technical aspects of renting a building to potential productions. The 1.4 Parks and Roads operations position I spoke out about when I talked about the parks operations budget. So the cost of the FTE, the total cost of staffing, part of it, of course, is driven by cost of living increases for the existing complement of staff, as well as the addition of the new FTE request. So all of those staffing changes, I believe, are going to add, I thought was going to be 494,000, but I'm pulling out the increased elected official remuneration piece. So that's bringing the annual year-over-year incremental cost from staffing or remuneration to 426,000, which is a required increase of about 4.63%. And because we're doing these changes or adding these new staffing positions kind of partway through the year, you don't feel the full impact of those costs until next year's budget. So in 2024-25, you can see that we believe that the cost of that part year implementation is 196,000, and then it goes up again for 2026, and that's been built into the 5-year plan. Our reserve fund, property tax reserve fund contributions. So part of our annual year-over-year increase is making sure that we adequately put money away to pay for our capital projects, or to put money away to save for future costs that we know are coming at us. So in 2025, the incremental reserve fund contribution is $475,000 to all of those different funds there. So that's 5.8% of the property tax increase. Yeah, again, it's staffing, and it's these needed contributions to reserves to build those reserves up in order to fund the annual ongoing costs to replenish, to replace, to protect our infrastructure. You can see the difference between what we're spending out of statutory reserves versus what we're putting into it. The blue line is us putting money into statutory reserves, and the green line is what we're pulling out. For 2024, obviously we're in 2025 still, we're in a very period of capital intensive. We're building community centers, we're building big water projects. We're still spending a lot of our reserve money on that. But over time, what we want to see is an increase of that blue line over the green line. We want to be putting more money in than we're taking out of the cupboard every year, because leaving some in the bank every year is what will get us to sustainability, and what will make sure that we have enough money to fund in the event that we have a catastrophic infrastructure failure, or we have something unanticipated. We have to be able to make sure that we're prepared for that. We are in this period of intensive capital expenditures, so we expect our 2026 capital general fund expenditures 2025, we expect them to be just over $6.5 million, dropping to $4.7 million in 2026, and leveling off eventually by about year 4, year 5. We do believe that we're looking at an annual investment of about $2.5 million a year to renew, protect, keep, and replace the inventory that we have, the infrastructure that we have. Our debt service costs from the general fund, they are currently going to be about $675,000 in 2025. Once the new works yard kicks in, you'll see they start to increase from there. In 2027, that fire truck loan will be paid off, so we get a little bit of a reprieve there. But going forward, we can expect, if all goes to plan, that about $750,000 a year is going to be spent from general funds to service that community lands debt, the fire hall debt, the community center debt, and now potentially this new works yard debt. The plan is available on the website, bowenislandmunicipality.ca. It is a substantial plan. I do hope that you take a look and have a read of it. And the utilities plan, financial plan, is another supplemental document. It covers all 7 water systems and the sewer system. I will ask our communications coordinator to post that on the website tomorrow. It is available now if you look at the Committee of the Whole agenda that has been published for March 3rd. There's a link in there to this document. So we will be going over the water and sewer expenditures in detail on Monday at 1 o'clock at that meeting. Where we're at in our process, we are here February 27th, second public budget open house. Our next touch point is going to be March 3rd at that Committee of the Whole for the utilities. There's going to be an updated revised draft going to council on the 10th. And on March 24th, I will coordinate all of that information into one final report with a final draft presented to council and seeking council direction to draft a financial plan bylaw from there. So your opportunities, apart from right now for budget input, is at the Committee of the Whole on March 3rd. Of course, there is a dedicated website community discussion board, so please go check that out and have a look in there. You have to register for an account, but you can, it's a moderated discussion. There's not been a lot of activity. We'd love to see a little more chatter in there, but it is monitored and we are answering all the question that we got. There's this feedback period officially is open through March 7th, but any feedback that we get either at our dedicated budget email or all of that email that goes direct to mayor and council, they read all of that. It gets put on an agenda. So there are always ways, public comments at any of the council meetings. Yeah, there's always ways to communicate and make your feelings known to council using any of those opportunities. So that's it. So I'm gonna escape and see if anybody has any questions or any comments they'd like to share with us that we can share with council, or any advice or feedback is always welcome.
Kristen, oh, sorry, can you hear me? There's just a question in the chat. Marie's asking if you missed a mention about the sewer pipe that runs under Snug Cove up to Dorman Point.
I don't know anything about it. Is that something that you've heard about, Marie? That is not in the Public Works work plan, for any work to be done on that. They did have a situation where there was, a failed culvert on the south side of the street. They did a bunch of remediation work there two or 3 years ago, so I think that they feel like they've dealt with that for now. It's likely in the longer term plan, but I will have to check in with Patrick about that, because I'm sorry, I'm not aware that there's anything in the next 5 years dedicated towards that. So thank you for that. I'm just writing it down. Okay, do I have any other questions? Oh, okay, Bill.
I was just reading Murray's comment. Okay. Hi, Kristen. And
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. Sorry. I'll get back to that, Mary.
do you want to do it now?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. All right. So Kristen and staff, thank you very much for it's an amazing amount of information, and I kind of was waiting until I saw the amended stuff come out. But to be perfectly honest, I haven't had a lot of time to look through the documents. I did a brief run. I guess I should begin by apologizing for my outing to council. I have the best equipment in the world, but it failed completely. I couldn't
Oh, right.
communicate over
Yeah, we
Zoom.
missed you.
Well, I hope I typed in a little note saying I could see you, but I had no audio, so there was no point in continuing. But my note was there. And I guess instead of picking away at every single one, the ones that stand out to me.
Mhm.
The first question is, why is there such a big gap between the budget amount for 2024 and the actual amount for 2024? There's about a $600,000 gap there.
Yeah, I'm looking at a surplus of about $600,000 a year. Some of that is coming from the revenue side.
Right.
We did it really well on our investments this year, so I'm really happy about that.
Mhm.
I did probably about $200,000 more on our investments. Having interest rates high is really good if you're all in fixed. If you're in
Yeah.
fixed interest and you've got cash.
Yeah,
So,
cash is king for sure.
yeah. So that was good. Good. I'm initially when I did the budget, I expected interest rates to fall, but
Yes.
now under this new scenario,
Who knows?
who
Yeah,
knows?
I know.
Yeah, so I'm sticking with the investment approach that I took last year, so hoping that we do well again there. So part of it was that. Part of it was that $150,000 disaster mitigation grant. It's even though it's a
Mhm.
grant fund, it's sitting there as part of the operational expenses
Okay,
in emergency planning.
right.
So it's not funded from property taxes, it's funded from grant funds, but when it didn't get spent, that leaves you with a what
And
looks like a
it
hundred and
shows
fifty thousand
an
dollar surplus.
operation. Okay,
So that's part of it.
that
And
helps.
then the other one, and like what I tried to get at is if you look at the public works budget year over year, I'm not increasing it because there were some one-time expenses in that public works thing that aren't coming back this year. So having those and not spending them really contributed to our surplus last year. I did do quite an analysis on it because I know at some point I needed to speak to council about it, but I'm sorry I don't have it right in front of me, but I'll make sure.
No, that's okay. That was really an off the top kind of
Yeah,
question.
I'll make sure that I address that on March 10th. So thank you for that.
Okay. Um, so in terms of, obviously, we're going to have to fund staff for the community center. There's no doubt about that.
Mhm,
Everybody understands that. Everybody is anticipating. I hope everyone's looking forward to the municipal hall portion
mhm,
opening, to the community hall portion opening, and that the community will embrace it and take advantage of this, enormous effort and investment. Um, and yeah, we're going to have staff. There's no question about that. I questioned in my note to council, um, are we really adding, you know, two different groups are offering to do the work. The Hearth is offering to basically steward one of the positions, but it's still
mhm,
going to cost municipal money.
mhm,
And even though your point, and you made this quite clearly, even though it looks like it's not that much money the first year out, because we're certainly part of the way through the fiscal year, if we create FTEs, uh, those are two, there's a total of 4.5. That's going to be hit on the basic tax requirement, property
mhm,
tax requirement, every year forever after. So, having said what I just said about the community center, I'm a huge believer in the community center, always have been, and supporter. And I think there have been a lot of concerns about the process and how long it's taken to build. I
mhm,
think when it opens, it will be proven to be a real community winner.
mhm.
The positions that I'm going to question are the ones in public works.
Okay.
Um, again, I have been, along with others, I see one on the screen here that asks the same question year after year. Asset management plan. We've been
Mhm,
saying year after year after year, we have to have a handle on
mhm,
both the inventory of what assets the municipality owns,
mhm,
what condition they're in, and what the expected expenses are going to be to either maintain or to replace. And we don't have that. Um, but I wasn't really expecting a one FTE to come forward as the answer to that long-standing question. I looked around at other municipalities, small and large. They have benefited greatly from grants from UBCM to do asset management planning.
mhm,
I went to the website and I found out that they don't have any grants announced for 2025. I hope the program hasn't ended. They had grants in 2024. Um, I'm thinking in my mind, would it be better, and I'm only putting this out for discussion and for you to think about, and hopefully for Patrick to think about, would it be better to actually do a contract for that work to be done so it's not a forever FTE position that we're paying
mhm,
for? Once the
mhm,
asset management plan is done, I'm absolutely sure the person would find other work to do. The municipality would find other work. But do we really want to fund a full-time
mhm.
1.0 FTE allocated to asset management planning?
Yeah, and by
Question.
contract, I guess you're saying it could also be time limited, like,
Correct.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah, no,
perhaps
that's good
with an
feedback.
without outside funding.
Yeah, it is. I
I don't
will,
I don't want to pick on the public works
no,
department,
no,
but
no, I don't either.
well, I'm going to mention the truck. I also like, come on, like honestly, uh, even if you can buy a used truck, and I doubt if you can, there aren't any on the market. It's a nice thought, but it's again I think it's about $70,000 of expenditure is 1% of tax increase. you know, and that's
Now it's about 87. I mean, our last
okay.
year's,
Okay, but
yeah,
one truck could be
yeah,
1%,
mhm,
and it's a continuing, ongoing expense.
yeah,
You mentioned that you do reimburse, and I expected, of course you do. It's
mhm,
pretty standard. I think it's 66 or 67 cents a kilometer,
mhm,
and the reasoning that was given by the public works staff for that vehicle was actually fairly weak. You know, that people might need to go out, that there might be more work, that two staff use their own vehicles. I'm thinking that's working. Why would we, particularly right now, when we don't know what the overall expenditures are going to be, when there's so many unknowns about what interest rates are going to look like.
yeah,
In fact, we're clearly in a state of real uncertainty in all kinds of ways, politically, economically, socially,
mhm,
and to burden, you know, an additional 1.0 FTE to that position, and then to provide a vehicle to that position to drive around doing asset management, because it kind of looked like that was part of what the position would be using to do their work. So those are the two things out of everything that we've talked about that I would pick out and pick on and say, could we do a rethink?
mhm. Fair comment. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Um, I will take the opportunity to respond back to Murray that you're talking about the sewer outfall in Snug Cove. That is in the budget that there's authorized borrowing going forward to pay for that project. That project is underway right now. There's design work being done. We spent about $70,000 last year doing the elementary design of that project. There's a whole lot of um I don't know if it's a consultation process, but there's a whole lot of notification process. So you may, if you've seen the Canada Gazette, you'll see we're going through some kind of public notice process where we have to um, advise people of the potential of this work that's ongoing. And that's quite a long period in order to get the authorization to proceed, because now we're not only dealing with the provincial government, but we're also dealing with the federal government on this project. So there's many multi-jurisdictional layers that get involved to slow these projects down. But the design work is underway. I expect that we've probably gotten about 70% of the way through that. And the construction is set to, I believe, begin in July, I think is the timeline for that. I hope that answers your question. The whole project value of that is $1.2 million. Mm, Anybody else have questions or comments or?
Kristen, there was one more from Marie in there regarding the Beach Drive, the road to the helicopter service area.
Right.
Um, is that somewhere in the budget?
Again, where is the works plan that they've put forward this year for road work? It looks like they're going to be doing, given that they're digging up roads in Blue Water right now, I believe they're going to be spending some of their roads rehabilitation budget on that. I think they're maybe looking at trying to stretch those dollars a little bit further this year. And if I recall correctly, I believe that there is potentially some discussion around maybe looking at chip sealing some surfaces to extend their life a little bit. I was just talking with Paul, our roads superintendent, yesterday actually, and I said, well, if you are going to do that, then perhaps Beach Drive is something that could easily get in on that list too, and that would probably address the problem a little bit and give that a couple of years or longer periods in between the grading, the constant road, because there's a lot of road maintenance that takes place on Beach Drive because of the state of the gravel road there. It in order to remediate it to the state that I'm sure a lot of you would like to see it, it requires a lot of work, ditching and draining and many dollars expended, I think, to get it to the quality that some people would like to see it. So I think there's always those considerations, how much of our limited roads work budget can be spent on a road such as Beach Drive, which is, constructed to such a low standard to begin with. So I'm wondering maybe, I think they're thinking about it, but thinking perhaps maybe a coat of chip seal might really suck everything in and hold it down and prevent the gravel from washing away and creating the potholes. So we'll see. But definitely if that's a priority, then please send your feedback to council and to Patrick and that's the way to get things done. Nobody? Oh, we're right on time. It's 7:11. It's a lot of material, so if you want to read through it and you want to get hold of me, you can always call me. I'm here. 947-4255, extension 256 is my number, and my email is kwatson@bimbc.ca, and we do have the dedicated budget@bimbc.ca email address too. And I think that's it. There's no more questions that you see there, Sophie? Okay, well, that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone. Bye.